All right, folks. This was a great exchange here, and I wanted to talk about it because this is the most important thing here. One of the most important elements here, as far as my pursuit and my work. In just a couple of things I want to address here, like the notion of, like in CRV, as you mentioned here. There's a term, Ingo Swann is responsible for AOL, analytical overlay. And that is supposed to indicate that during a remote viewing attempt, the viewer has an element of the quote-unquote target, but they are interpreting it as something else that they're analytically trying to resolve what the target is, and which was a very good notion, a very good idea back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and it's still used today, overused in my opinion. But when I hear it, it sounds like old language. In that, to introduce the notion into people's mind that of what might be taking place in their mind. Well, they're having an analytical episode here, and it's overlaying the quote-unquote signal. It's a piece of the target that their analytical mind has decided it must be this, that kind of thing. And that was good for that time, but in my opinion, that time is over. That doesn't tell us anything. It was good for that time, but it's not good anymore in my opinion. The term the category that I put it in now, because you were asking that now, what instead of AOL, how do I view something like that? I look at it in terms of pattern completion, and that comes from the terminology that is used in what these areas of the brain are responsible for. So how do I come to that? I come to it from for the past 10 years, I have been exploring how my brain is interpreting how my brain is processing during an actual remote viewing experience, and then what parts of my brain are being stimulated in the pursuit to get to what I call the selector mechanism and the attractor mechanism. The attractor mechanism, in my opinion, that I've discovered from experiments using my own brain, and then having the experience, and then going and looking into these parts of my brain. That's how I found the dentate gyrus and all the other cerebral peduncle and all the rest of them. Is from the act of remote viewing itself, and then looking into my brain. The CA3 area of the brain, via these mossy fibers, this part of the brain, they actually term it a attractor dynamic. And I found this after I had theorized a attractor mechanism in the brain, meaning it is electromagnetically drawn through the mossy fibers into the areas of the brain that begin to correlate memories, memory comparisons, There are elements that can correlate with a memory that's already in a neural net of the brain. So when I found that, I was able to resolve to an extent, at least for now, that the attractor mechanism actually is real. The selector mechanism, on the other hand, is way more elusive, and I'm still in the pursuit of satisfying that for myself. My theory is that it is in the hippocampus, and getting into that part. And when I say selector mechanism, I'm talking about an element of our brain that is able to select ranges of time and space, which is what I term a target. I don't like calling it a target. It's a range of time and space. And so there is an element in our brain that can select that particular range of time and space. I call that the selector mechanism. That part of the brain can process that, in my opinion, gravitational radiation, and then it's attracted through the dentate gyrus into the CA3 region, through the mossy fiber region, through, in my terms, the attractor mechanism, in their terms, the attractor dynamic. And in that area, I theorize, is where the stimulus, the input, the range of time and space, is now beginning to have higher level functioning in the brain, interact with higher level functioning brain mechanisms that can begin to recognize the patterns within that stimulus and begin to associate them with memories. So when I did this experiment here, I wanted another example of that. I wanted another example of, in these terms, of what happens in this area of the brain here, which is what is termed pattern completion and pattern separation. Pattern completion, or what I'll call an AOL now, or PC, is when the stimulus is moving through the mossy fibers, a memory association begins to take place. And that memory association, those mossy fibers then continue to expand out into that memory association, into those fibers of the brain. That's pattern completion. Pattern separation is where the stimulus is coming through. Let me highlight this. Yeah, that's a crappy image. Oh, that's better. Pattern separation is where the stimulus is coming through and it continues to grow out. We're able to access more of our understanding of things, and it's not completing, it's continuing its expansion out. The completion, again, now that I have this bigger image, is where the stimulus is coming through the mossy fibers. It has a pattern similarity. That pattern is then connected. These mossy fibers are then connected to that pattern, similar pattern, and then that pattern is complete. The remote viewing has ended. The remote viewing has ended. So my pursuit is manyfold. It's not to nail the target. It's not to declare AOLs. It's not based on those things. It is to get a better understanding of what is taking place in our brain and how we are interacting with this, with the stimulus itself, and what the stimulus is and might be. In my opinion, my theory, it's gravitational radiation, gravitational waves, and I theorize that we have a part in our brain that can interact with gravitational waves and can select them. That is my theory. And that's not based on reading anybody's books. That's not based on anything other than my own exploration for 10 years now into this process and doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these. And using my brain as like a lab rat. So hopefully that is a better understanding. I think I wasn't really clear in this, so I do apologize for that. Hopefully this is a bit more clear. So thanks so much for the comments. I really, really appreciate them. And many more to come.